say a few words from the perspective of a reasonably active tech enthusiast who's currently working through a heart condition, which is having a major impact on an active lifestyle. So I'll give you the background. During my early years in the army, which included armored vehicles and the special forces, we were expected to push extremely hard during training. Then when we're totally exhausted, get up, do it all again and push even harder. There was a little concept in those days of pushing too hard. I then had a spell on a training floor in the City of London, much of the time pushing nothing less strenuous or nothing more strenuous than a Lotus 1-2-3 spreadsheet. About 15 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able, with my brother-in-law, to start up my own tech company, designing and manufacturing sports GPS mapping devices. That's where I discovered my current passion, which is riding push bikes with friends and family up the wonderful and often steep mountains of Europe. So I think we've got a slide coming up in a second. So for me, it's really all about family, all about friends and the mountains. Some of my best moments have been doing Land's End to John O'Groats. I think that was 1,400 kilometers. And on one occasion, the entire route of the Tour de France for an outstanding charity. I think that was 3 weeks, 3,600 kilometers and lots of hills. So that was all fine until I began to notice at the top of some of the mountains, my regular heart rate monitor from a well-known brand just stopped working for about 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And so I was either suffering from a lot of flat batteries or there was something else going on. I then found an outstanding cardiologist in the shape of Professor Sanjay Sharma from St. George's Hospital in London. And Sanjay gave me a nod in the direction of Frontier X. And really the whole experience since then has been a total game changer. And I'll tell you why. So the Frontier X, I've been using it for the last 5 months or so, has just given me an incredible level of clarity and detail about my heart during these prolonged endurance events. And it just can't get that type of detail from other devices. And it helps me, particularly with this condition, to sort of dispel fear and the uncertainty, especially those sort of flatline situations that we see on TV shows occasionally. And it transpires, I have a condition which you are now familiar with called ventricular tachycardia. In my particular case, it appears to be caused by a third spark plug in the heart, which is deciding to join the party when my heart beat reaches about 150 beats a minute. And more recently, even lower than that. The heart sort of has 2 spark plugs and lots of backup systems, but it certainly doesn't need a third one playing by its own rules. So on the slide that's just about to come up, you'll be familiar with the traces now from the Frontier X. You can see fairly obviously, and you just do not need to be a total expert in this, the graph at the top where the red arrow is, you can see the total change of rhythm, where it goes from normal sinus rhythm into basically a mess, which is a technical term, otherwise known as VTs. Actually, it looks more scary on the graph than it is for me in reality, as there are different types of VTs, and some of them are more serious than others. But the nice folks in white coats did keep saying to me that best we minimize that as much as possible. So I'm fairly sure that the COVID-19 lockdown and all the ensuing restrictions has led to a deterioration in that condition. And at one point, my VTs were kicking in at about 130 beats a minute. And on one occasion, again, it lasted for about 25 minutes. So I guess that was a real low point in many respects. And I realized in my early 60s that effectively my riding days with friends and family were virtually over. Since for me, any decent hill would take my heart rate to at least 155 or 160. Then I got enrolled in the Fourth Frontier heart rate program, which along with the Frontier X unit has made a huge difference in managing the condition. Peter and his cardiac team give me 30 minutes a week of detailed reviews and advice focused on critical aspects of the fitness and endurance training, all within the constraints imposed by my particular condition. I should stress that my cardiologist, Professor Sharma, remains in charge of the medical aspects, whilst the heart program team gives me very detailed and tailored advice about the fitness and recovery. So this, in my view, is where Frontier X is leading the pack with this type of tech. The strap, which is less cumbersome than most other heart rate straps, can easily be set to alert at predefined levels of heart strain, heart rate, and respiration rate. The data then all gets uploaded for analysis later on. Just a word about heart strain. In my view, this is a key metric coming out of the Frontier X strap. And my hope is that this heart strain number will be widely adopted by the fitness industry in the near future. On that graph on the slide, you can see the elevated levels of heart strain, which are marked in red, the fourth graph down. And at that stage, my heart strap was buzzing in a most persistent way, encouraging me to slow down and get my heart back into normal sinus rhythm. So what's the prognosis? Well, in a word, things are looking up. I'm on a low dose of beta blockers, which for me is an amazing drug. And Peter is putting me through a lot of steady base training at about a 120 to 130 beats a minute. For me, this has been a big change, as previously I'd be doing 3 to 4 hours at 150 or 160 with my local bike club, cycling club each week. So after a session, we'll export all the data from the Frontier X and my other gadgets up onto Strava and Training Peaks. So us roadies tend to focus on power output and heart rate quite a lot. And I'm very pleased to say that after the training sessions of the last number of months, my power output for a given heart rate has benefited considerably from this style of training, not to mention keeping the VTs at bay. I'm now back doing 160-kilometer endurance rides, albeit solo and albeit at a steady pace at the moment, and just yet no team riding. And I still need to drop about 20 pounds, but that's in hand. I'm hoping to get the miscreant cells sorted out with an ablation procedure in a couple of months. And then for 2022, it should just really be one question. Next trip to the mountains, is it going to be the Pyrenees or the Alps? So the last item I'd like to mention is about tech, data integration, and how supportive the team at Fourth Frontier have been. This speaks, I believe, to a strong desire to push forward this type of tech to as wide an audience as possible to improve our overall health outcomes and especially cardiac health. After pestering them endlessly about the various aspects of the Frontier X device, they kindly allowed us to export their proprietary data onto our GPS mapping smartphone app. I think there's a screenshot coming up just now. So my firm specializes in GPS gadgets and high quality mapping. It was therefore logical pairing to bring the Frontier X cardiac data out on a Bluetooth connection and display it alongside the mapping, the elevation, and the other fitness data. For us, this gives us a one-stop solution for outdoor hikers and bikers. And on this slide, you can see that we have at the top live streamed ECG above the elevation data and above the mapping data. And we happen to be using, in the UK, Ordnance Survey mapping or some other detailed topographic mapping. I have a particular interest to see live ECG during exercise, as it helps me detect any early signs of VTs. And it shows very, very clearly when my heart goes back into sinus rhythm after I slow down and stop. And that's a really crucial element for me. And at the same time, though, I need to see the detailed mapping as I'm often riding long distances solo. So I've got to navigate and keep an eye on the VTs at the same time, just at the moment. And then after the event, it's then an easy step to export this lot to Strava and Training Peaks, which displays all the fitness metrics, as well as then seeing all the detailed ECG analysis on Fourth Frontier's excellent web app dashboard. So I'd summarize saying that I probably trained too hard when I was young. I got fat, I lost fitness doing a desk job in the city. And clearly these heart conditions can creep up on us unexpectedly, especially after all the pressures of the current pandemic. This type of tech, in my opinion, is a game changer. And it gives us, the average Joe, real clarity over managing these issues safely and successfully. So for which I am eternally grateful. So that's about it from me. Back over to you, Sandeep. Thank you.